Hey, 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 welcome back to Drive Time. I am your host, Craig Pasta Jardula, and we do it live, bringing you all the hot takes, headlines, and unfiltered opinions that matter most. Whether you're stuck in traffic, cruising to work, or just chilling at home, we want to hear from you. Today's topics are all about the big stories making waves, but we're not just here to talk at you. We want to hear your thoughts, your experiences, and your take on everything from the latest political debates to the everyday challenges we face. Remember, whether you're on the left, the right, or somewhere in between, we welcome all points of view. So grab that hands-free device, dial us up, and let's dive into the conversation. What's on your mind? It's Drive Time. Call in now. Good morning, everybody. I want you to witness something. This is my first sip of coffee in the morning. Hold on. Here we go. You hear that? That smells so good, sounds so good. Welcome to the show, everybody. This is Drive Time, and it is your time right now. If you want to call in, 561-247-2721. It looks like our co-host is here bright and early, bushy-tailed and bright and early. Ladies and gentlemen, Lieutenant Colonel Karen Kwiatkowski is with us this morning. Good morning, Lieutenant. How are you?
I'm fine. Yeah, I joined a little bit earlier today than my usual late time, I guess.
I'm like, okay, maybe you got nothing going on or too much going on, and you got a lot to say. It's 7:00 where I'm at. I'm actually in Peru.
Oh, wow.
Double work right here to cover. First of all, pleasure. There's a wedding I'm here for, but also we wanted to see a little bit about what's going on, getting ready for the inauguration. Peru sits on the lithium triangle. And the United States has a lot of interest in as much lithium as possible. In fact, I would argue, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, that lithium might be one of the most rarest commodities out there right now that is going to be a struggle. And I say struggle because it seems like other superpowers like China really wants to get in the act. They come in with their checkbook. We come in with our gun. But still, nonetheless, there's going to be a fight for lithium for the fourth industrial revolution. Peru sits on the lithium triangle. So the United States is always involved. The CIA always tends to show up over here. So it's up an hour early for me as I'm in Lima at 7:00. What time is it over there?
It's 8.
Okay, so you guys are on Eastern Standard Time. I always think that you're like with Sleepy because he's at 7:00 or because he's in Illinois. But, you know, Illinois, Ohio, what do you want to do, you know?
Yeah. Wow.
So,
I forgot you were going to be in Peru. That's interesting. And
just for the week, I'll be back home in the good old US of A next week. But I'm curious. They're having some conversations with some Peruvian citizens out here. More on the conservative leaning side. But what are your thoughts on what we see unfolding in front of us? Because the peace president has actually delivered us, I think, one of the most scariest, just wartime bombing like crazy. He mentioned that the president of the United States mentioned that he might start bombing Yemen again. So they're back involved. Yemen is threatened to shut down the other strait, was Bab Mandab Strait. Then there's also the Suez Canal that's been threatened to be bombed. So then nothing will get out of that region. A lot of oil, a lot of fertilizer, a lot of other things come out of there. But what's your thoughts as we sit here? And the House has now passed the NDAA with Section 219 intact. Zero debate on the floor for that. So it doesn't seem just to be like this. We can't put this all on the president. This is the system we have because they cooperated, went right along with this. And now the House has said, okay, we don't even have to talk about it for the American people because it's supposed to be for the benefit of the American people. They have a debate about it. They have a conversation about it on the floor. And that didn't even happen. Yeah. Your thoughts on the state of war and the state of the world right now? Because I think we're at a point, not to quote the president, of the likes like we've never seen before, Colonel.
Yeah, well, he is right about that. I think it's pretty intense and it's pretty significant. You know, Trump has restarted the war in Iran, and the Yemen army, the Ansar Allah, has joined this war against, Saudi has sieged them for so long, I think almost 11 years. So they are delivering a siege for a siege in the Red Sea. And there are a couple of Saudi ports. They have a pipeline Saudi oil goes, and most of it goes through Strait of Hormuz. Obviously, that is a problem now, on and off. It's closed now. So they pipeline some oil over. They always have, and export it out of the Red Sea. But what the Houthis have done, even though that's not really the Houthis, it's Ansar Allah. So it's an armed group that actually controls the biggest army in Yemen. They have decided to blockade only Saudi. So the Red Sea is not closed, and the Strait of Bab el-Mandab is not closed, but it is closed for Saudi Arabian ships. And it's closed also, it has been closed for American and Israeli ships. And, you know, the port, the Israeli port there, I forget the name of it now. It has been shut down. It went bankrupt. There's nothing going in and out of that. So the Ansar Allah is very effective in doing this. They had held off, and now they've done it. So, but it complicates things because, first off, Saudi can't do anything. Those Saudi ships are not attempting to get sunk. They will get sunk. They know it. They went up through the Suez. They're not going down through the southern exit of the Red Sea. So, but Saudi Arabia, of course, is our friend, but they also have a dual defense agreement with Pakistan. And Pakistan, of course, is friends with everybody. And Pakistan has been hosting, you know, the Islamabad talks, produced the MOU. So that was a big thing. But now Pakistan is being pressured. Hey, wait a minute. Now do I have to defend Saudi Arabia against Ansar Allah? What's going on? You know, so it's complicating. And meanwhile, you have Israel sitting fat, dumb, and happy going, we like how it's going. This is great. We're not sending troops anywhere. America's taking care of it for us. So, you know, and meanwhile, they're continuing the Gaza slaughter, the genocide. They're continuing to literally destroy South Lebanon. I mean, they're flattening South Lebanon just like they did Gaza. They have control of 70% of Gaza. They're boasting about it. They're building a big berm, a man-made mountain range to divide north to south Gaza and keep the remaining Palestinians there. And then, of course, they're expanding West Bank. The West Bank is getting totally just ridiculous. So all that's happening. Israel's not getting hit by anybody yet. Interestingly enough, all of our forces are having to go farther and farther west, away from the Gulf states, because it used to be 14 of our bases were inhabitable. Now it's 17 of our bases are inhabitable because the Iranians have been quite effective with their military targeting, and they've done it. You know, it's not hard really to understand the Iranian method because it's by the book military offense and defense. I mean, they are following the rules of war. They are taking out the eyes and ears first. Then they are attacking logistics. Then they are meanwhile constantly defending their airspace as best they can. Defending their airspace is not their strong suit, but taking out our ability to operate anywhere near their borders is proving to be their strong suit. So anyway, that's kind of where that is. And Trump, of course, reactive. The Saudi Arabia is also, they didn't eat for some reason, and I shouldn't be surprised really. I mean, think about who runs Saudi. Think about the government of Saudi Arabia. It's a kingdom, first off, right? A kingdom. It's like America. It's a kingdom. We have a king. The king's crazy, make bad decisions. Okay, well, same thing in Saudi Arabia, I think, to some extent. So they were not strategically prepared for what Ansar Allah did in terms of stopping their oil from leaving. And of course, none of Saudi oil is going out the Strait of Hormuz. That's completely stopped and has been for 2 weeks now.
By the way, you mentioned Gaza too. I think a family of 6 was slaughtered last night in their sleep.
Yeah, in their 2 in the morning, slaughtered a family, injured other people around them. This happens every single day. The Israelis have, everybody knows this, but they've gone too far. And at this point, a reckoning, will happen. And I don't think we're going to have to wait till the next, the next phase. I don't think we have to wait till God decides. I think the reckoning for Israel is going to happen in front of our own eyes in the next, in coming months, actually. That's what I think. They have, you heard about the alligators, right? Or the crocodiles. What? I don't know if it's crocodiles or alligators, but Ben Gvir's bringing in some reptiles. He's importing them, and he had to change the zoological regulations in Israel in order to bring in these huge alligators. I think they're actually crocs. I don't think they're alligators. I think they're crocodiles, because crocodiles, Egyptian, they live in that area. They're regional. Anyway, they had to change the laws. The zoo had to get involved, the zoological regulations, because you're not allowed to keep crocodiles because they're categorized as a wild animal. So they changed it, the categorization of these crocodiles, to a maintained animal, a kept animal. Like a farmed animal. It's not a farmed animal, but kind of. Anyway, they changed the rule, the definition. Now they're importing these things, digging trenches around the Palestinian prisons inside of, well, presumably Gaza, but pretty much inside of the occupied territories of Israel. And they're starting with one to see how it works. Digging a trench, filling it with water, and putting these gators in there. Around the Palestinians. It's a terrorism tactic. I guess it's a security tactic. And Ben-Gvir's behind it. And Ben-Gvir, of course, is the evil genius, I guess you could say. But he's not a genius. He's just evil. But he said he got the idea from his good friend Donald Trump, who had done something similar in Florida with, what are they called?
Alligator Alcatraz.
Yeah. Which actually we didn't have. I didn't think we emplaced alligators there. We put a prison where alligators already live, something like that. But he liked the idea. So what they're going to do is bring in the gators. They've already done it. They've already identified the gators that they're bringing in. I keep calling them gators. I think they're crocs.
They're crocs.
Crocs. Yeah.
I just looked it up. It's
Yeah, the crocodiles. And so they've got them on tap. They know what they're bringing in. They're buying little ones, which are cheaper, and also some big ones. Hopefully the big ones will eat the little ones, and the project won't work. But in any case, we don't know. They are digging the trench, the what do they call it? Moat. They're digging the first moat to experiment with this. And it's a pure, it's actually beyond terrorism. It's blatant anti-humanism. It's blatant Nazism out in front of everybody to see. And Ben-Gvir and his friends are freaking celebrating it. They love it. So it's almost entertainment at the end of Empire. You know how we have, what was that show with Gladiator? Right. So the gladiators would go out and sacrifice their lives and fight to the death and fight, starving lions and things like that. And the people would watch it, and they would cheer and love it and buy beer and, bread and circuses, and they loved it, ate it up. And that was the means of managing your society. And I think that's Israel's gone there, and we have gone there also. But
I don't think if you brought in a guy who was writing horror films for his career, that you could even write something so crazy and creepy for what the Israelis are doing. And Ben-Gvir, obviously,
he's a creep.
I'm not surprised to see him at the helm.
Yeah. Well, if Ben-Gvir was living in America as a guy, he brought his family. I presume he has a large family, and he was living in an American neighborhood. He would be a pedophile, a rapist, and a serial killer all in one. And everybody in the neighborhood would be saying, that guy's a serial killer. And the cops would be like, what? We don't have any evidence. Yeah. But we all knew. We would all know. And then eventually they'd get him, and they'd make a movie. They could make a Lifetime for Women movie about it. But he lives in Israel, where he's much more normalized than what he would be in the United States, at least at this point. We could be coming worse. We're integrating our military with the IDF. And, I think one of the reasons they don't want to discuss it in Congress. Well, one of them is they've been bought off by AIPAC. But the other reason the Congress doesn't want to discuss this NDAA that really integrates, the word fusion has been used. Marjorie Taylor Greene uses the word fusion, but she's not the only one. People in the Pentagon and people in Congress are using the word fusion to talk about what will happen with our military acquisition, our technology, our military intelligence. Everything that has to do with the Pentagon will be fused with the counterparts that exist in Israel, the IDF and Mossad. So they don't want to talk about it. And one of the reasons they don't want to talk about it is it's already fused.
Yeah.
And so what'll happen is, it's already fused. So what'll happen is somebody will say, like, say they have a question of somebody, and they say, well, how will this be different? And the guy answering the question before Congress, presumably under oath, will say, well, actually, we already do this. Yeah. We already do this. It's just this legislation just takes it a little bit further. Then they're going to bring the next guy up, the acquisition guy or the logistics guy or the intel guy. And he's going to say the same thing. No, actually, don't worry about it. It's nothing. We already do this. Okay. And I think that's why they don't want to talk about it, because it's already done. So for Americans, it's the time is ripe to never, ever serve the United States military. You need to be extremely careful about sending your kids or yourself, bless you,
thank you,
into the U.S. military. This is not a sovereign military, and it does not defend the United States of America. Clearly, it's a dual. It's a dual military. We have chosen to integrate our military with a country we don't even have a mutual defense agreement with. We are integrating our military with a country whose security chief, not Ben Gavir, the other guy that I always talk about, he's not the security chief, the finance guy, but Bezalel Smotrich. Smotrich has said that we like how the war in Iran is being fought. The Americans
we don't want to get involved.
We don't have any people to spare. We're busy terrorizing and bulldozing our neighborhoods, our borders. We are massacring the remaining Palestinians that live here so that there will be disappeared forever. We're getting what we want. We like it really well. Americans are paying for it in dollars. They're paying for it in higher energy costs. They're paying for it with the destruction of the world economy. They're paying for it with their lives, and they're running out of all their munitions for us, dear little Israel. And we like it like that. We're going to keep it like that. That's the ally that we're going to integrate with.
Yeah,
that's like the United States military is a Frankenstein, and we're going to put Israel's head on top of our Frankenstein and call it Defense of America. Well, it's not Defense of America. So big problem. The House isn't willing to step up. We'll see what the Senate does. Sometimes
you can forget about them. They're just as pro-Israel as the House. I don't know. I mean,
no, I don't think they're any good, but I do think the Senate, because they love attention, may have some more discussion about it, and that way
they might actually.
I think they might debate. Well, it's possible. It depends. And I'll tell you something. It's like everything, darkest before dawn or whatever. But I see the comment there. Hippos kill more humans than any other animal.
Well, I was thinking, that's right. If we ever flip this thing and we have prisons of, Israeli war criminals, we can put hippos around their thing, since hippos do kill more, I don't know.
I mean, it's obscene. It's obscene is what it is. But Trump is very desperate with the Senate. He's very nervous about the Senate. He's not nervous about the House. He's not. Other than getting rid of Thomas Massey, there was not much they had to do in the House. But he's very worried about the Senate. He has endorsed Lindsey Graham's sister. He didn't just endorse her to sit in for his rest of his term. He has endorsed her, and she has announced she's going to run for that 6-year term and the reason she says it, which means she's an idiot, of course. Well, we know that anyway. But compromised too, I'm sure. Maybe not in the same way Lindsey was, but still compromised. But what she said was, I want to be a senator, now that she has Trump's endorsement. I want to be a senator because I want to serve the people of South Carolina like my brother did. Are you kidding me?
Good God.
He served Israel.
She dropped her married name too to run.
Really? Well,
she did.
Mission. Yeah. Perfect. Well, I'll tell you what, the idiots in South Carolina, if they can't figure out that they're voting, they want another Graham, and they're going to take the sister, assuming that the genetic code is going to be enough to help their state. They won't help their state because Lindsey didn't help their state. But it'll be interesting. If they can't figure it out, then they deserve it. But it's unfortunate.
I got to tell you, I would love to be around your Thanksgiving dinner table. If there was a nephew or a cousin that would be asking you about advice about joining the military, and you explaining to them the military of today to where it was years ago, because I do understand, the propaganda and the programming that does take place in our books, right? They teach kids, they taught me too as well. I'm 53 years old, but I can remember being in school, how much we learned about Israel being, the Holocaust. I mean, we spent, years talking about the Holocaust, World War II, the oppression of Jews, why Israel it's justified starting a state. Yeah. I think we did one paragraph at the end of the book in one section about the Armenian Holocaust. Like, the balance, the imbalance, I should say, was ridiculous. And I do want to also point out that while they are suppressing news about the killing in Gaza, they're also suppressing news about what's taking place in the West Bank. And that seems to be
That's for
increased too
sure.
as well. That was something that Miriam Adelson got Donald Trump to go full-fledged in, is like, in fact, Donald Trump said it is legal for them to start colonizing, or I don't know what the word they use to make it more official and proper. But there are Israeli settlers now also terrorizing, Palestinians in the West Bank. Maybe they'll start walking in with crocodiles on leashes.
Yeah. Oh, don't
also
give me
want
any
to point
ideas.
out, when you're talking about Saudi Arabia, that in Jeffrey Epstein's island, Rape Island, whatever you want to call it, on one of the walls in one of his rooms, there was a picture of MBS. So, I mean, there is this weird kind of creepy connection. The monarchs that are over there, I'm still kind of curious about what's going to happen. I do think Bahrain will definitely flip, and we'll go back to being under Iranian control. I don't know if that will happen with the UAE or Qatar, but there's definitely going to be some uprising, I think, in some of these countries. So it's very interesting.
No, it is. The change is happening everywhere. I mean, new alliances are being formed. These governments are under huge pressure. These kingdoms and the Emirates are under pressure. They said there's something like 68 flights leaving the country, not coming back, packed with people from the Emirates leaving because, they're leaving because, power could be shut off, water salinization. Are you going to wait till the salinization is completely not working? The desalinization, you don't have water and then try to get out. No, the smart money is always getting out early. So they're doing that.
Well, my question to you is just, I'm kind of curious because I don't know if this feels like a blitzkrieg, like the military industrial complex is grabbing everything they can. I don't know if they can sustain what's going on. I mean, Americans are oblivious to what's going on. And like I said, the American tax dollars, everybody talks about Israel, but the American tax, not so much that the American stockholder, that are holding on to stocks. The very few people, the small percentage of people who do have stocks, but it does make up a large number of citizens. They're making a lot of money off this war. When Pam Bondi goes, the Dow is over 50. She's not kidding, because, BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard, they have the majority of ownership in Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, and all these other countries. So these people are making money and they're okay with it because it's not affecting them at home in the United States, right?
It is affecting them because the money they think they're making is terribly inflated. I guess you could say our dollar is depreciated, but our purchasing power. Okay, the Dow's over 50,000. Do you have more purchasing power today with the Dow at 50,000 than you did 10 years ago with the Dow at 25,000? No, you don't. In fact, we know that and it's not just the poor people who have to, I say poor people, that'd be 80% of the population, where their income goes to food, shelter, energy, transportation, utility type stuff. These are the things that we pay for, and all our money goes to it every month. We wait, pay. This is the paycheck to paycheck for the most part. Maybe they have a small nest egg, but for the most part, we're getting less transportation, less food, less energy, less heating and cooling, less housing than we did when the Dow was at 25. So this Dow at 50 is a freaking joke. They're telling you to your face in this country that your money is been depreciated. It's a printing press. Okay. We're making more dollars. Oh, look how high the Dow is. Isn't that wonderful? Can you buy any more with that? No, you can't even, you can't buy. We actually buy less than we did 10 or 15 years ago with the same money. So we are printing our money into a death spiral. But guess who knows that? Blackstone and all the investors, the guys at the top know that. So what do they want to do? Well, I'll tell you what Trump's doing. Trump is seizing assets as best he can. He's seizing oil everywhere. I consider that we leverage to the maximum extent Canadian oil. We have our own oil and fracking, although it's hard to say how much is really there. We call ourselves an oil exporter. We took Venezuela, trying to take and control Iran. We own Saudi Arabia at all costs. Why is Trump granting, without going through any of the normal international procedures or controls, uranium enrichment capability to Saudi Arabia? He has done that. He's bypassed the controls. He's given permission to do this. So here we are fighting a war so that Iran won't have nuclear capability, while we secretly, the back door, hand it to Saudi Arabia. Okay, so bottom line is the U.S. is looking for allies that can subsidize the dollar. The petrodollar is probably all that's left. We have no gold. The gold idea is nuts. Anybody that can prove to me that America has gold in Fort Knox, good. I'm happy to hear it. I want to see it. I want you to make me feel a lot better about myself. But you won't, because you can't. It's not there. The gold is held by all of our opponents: Russia, China, India, Iran, you name it. They have assets, but we don't have that kind of an asset. So when your dollars are being printed into oblivion, where their purchasing power shrinks by the minute, which is what we're seeing in this country, then the governments who want to survive, and the crony capitalists that cling to and control those governments, they need assets. So what are the assets that we see Blackstone and I say Blackstone, it's not just BlackRock, it's, the big asset companies that manage our government policy. What are they doing? Well, they don't have a lot of gold, although they'll get it if they can, but territory, okay? Strategic waterways that they can leverage and monetize, much as Iran has done with the Strait of Hormuz. That made Trump so mad. He's just mad because he didn't get in on it. He's mad because he didn't think about it doing it first. That's why he's mad. Oil, lithium, as you mentioned, the items that will be hardcore resources that the dollar could rest upon, because your paper currency is nothing. All paper currency is fiat currency. The king, the prime minister, whoever, the national central bank issues paper. What's it backed with? Well, the United States dollar is backed with the full faith and credit of the United States, which means nothing anymore.
Yeah.
It used to mean something. And also it used to mean asset base. Now, another thing countries can back their currency with, and America has done this historically, is the productive power of American industry. Okay. Well, Trump said he was going to fix all that. He was going to regenerate, rejuvenate, rebuild the industrial base in this country. That would have been a good thing to do. That is not a bad idea. That's a good idea. Everybody liked that idea too. It's a quite popular idea, which is why he got elected, why so many people voted for him, because they thought, well, he will do that. Well, he didn't do that. No, his idea really was, we're just going to steal other people's oil, run over their territories, and seize their straits. Strait of Malacca is another one. Second biggest strait for purposes of oil transfer. Philippines. Oh, Philippines. Where's that remind you of? Yeah, we got control over them. So anyway, this is how, not Trump himself with his little Trump pea brain, but the system itself, the deep state that supports and embraces Trump, and they work together. They're part of the same group. It's part of the same entity. This is what they're looking at, because to reindustrialize this country and make us something people would want to invest in, where they would trust our government's currency that's printed on a piece of paper that is nothing, right? It's nothing, means nothing. It's only on faith and credit. Yeah. That's it.
Well, it was supposed to be back with the petrodollar, right? In all fairness, I don't mean to cut you off.
After we went off, the dollar for real, for sure, in 71 under Nixon, because we kind of went off of it under FDR too. But anyway, Nixon abandoned the dollar thing. We know that most of our lives. I mean, I was 11 years old, so whatever. I don't remember a gold-backed dollar, but we did swiftly, very quickly, transition to the petrodollar, and that, of course, was the beginning of the Carter Doctrine. Was not too long after Nixon, right? I think we had who came after Nixon? Was it Carter? Wasn't Carter? No, Ford.
Ford.
No,
then
after
Carter.
Ford, it was Carter. So in the Carter Doctrine, which of course is Brzezinski's doctrine, this is the early neocon doctrine of global control for the United States, focused on oil, which was at that time, of course, managed by, or the governments there were still the monarchies, the kingdoms, the Emiratis, but they were not wealthy then. They were just at the beginning, the cusp of potential wealth. We swooped in and used that. That's the foundation of the petrodollar. But now, of course, all those countries are wealthy in both remaining oil reserves, which is good. That's good for them. Also dollars, which are useless. They're just printed, inflated pieces of paper. But they have diversified their economies. The industrial development, and I pick on these Gulf states because their governments are not representative. They are not native governments. They are crony post-colonial managed governments that we manage and control. Okay, so I criticize them for that. However, those governments, to every single one of them, even Oman, and Oman is, I don't lump them in there, but all of these governments have spent energy, time, thought, strategy, planning, and money to diversify their economies. They understand oil's not forever. You do need to step up, and you do need to figure out, what are you going to do next? That's what we should have been doing in this country. And, we haven't. So now we can't build ships. Our arms industry is totally uncompetitive and slow as Christmas, very expensive. Nobody wants our stuff, and we're out of it. So what are we going to do now? It produces very few jobs. The military industrial complex produces the fewest number of jobs per $1 million of taxpayer dollars thrown into that. Fewest number of jobs. You get more with any of your domestic investments, even forestry, even environmental programs of the government create more jobs for Americans than does the defense industry. So that's a joke. That's not a place we should put more money. It's a place we should put less money if we're trying to repair our country. But anyway, we're not doing it, and it takes years. And the train pretty much on that has left the station. So now you have the United States in a desperate condition. And if the trust in our money is based on our productive capacity, then you have to look at MAHA. You have to look at the health of our country. You have to look at employment levels, not just what the government says the employment levels are, but can Americans work? Are they educated in a way that they can take their lives at 18 and really build success by the time they're 40 or 50? No. Those opportunities are extremely more limited. And I'm not saying they're totally eliminated, but they are not. That's not what you see in the United States. People are not coming here to build their futures and raise their families. Unfortunately, Trump has a point. A lot of folks come here, and we have a great welfare system that the remaining working people and the debt is funding. And so that doesn't sound good. Like, oh, why are they coming here for that? Well, they're coming here because it's smart. I would do it too.
Yeah. I would be very careful with that statement, because I know
people say that that's not. In my view, is of course the people that work the hardest. Well, I say my view. It's not a global view. It's not even a large view. It's based on my own personal experience. If you want to get something done in my rural community, you want to have something built. You want hard work to be done. You want agricultural projects. You want somebody you can count on. You don't ask about citizenship. I'll just put it that way. You don't worry about if they have citizenship or not. The hardest working people are people that have grown up working hard. And I'm going to tell you, this is a broad brush, but many Americans, we don't work as hard as we think we do. Okay, let's put it that way. We used to be known as the hardest working people. And actually, I think when they look at hours spent in the office, Americans do spend time at work. There's no doubt. The ones that are working. But we have more people on disability. We have an aging population, which is highly medicated by their captive audience of big pharma, and government healthcare is largely consumed. And the money that we spend to take care of people goes into the pockets of big pharma, goes into pockets of big, hospitals, including nonprofit hospitals who they have to spend everything they get to show that it's for something to qualify. And yet tons of money is going in there. Is that help? Is that making us more healthy? Our food system. I mean, we talked about this. The Norwegian soccer team brought their own food in. I don't think they were the only team that did that, but they got publicity for bringing in Norwegian food. And what did they say? They said, well, your food is actually, we're a little bit concerned about your food. Okay. It may taste good, but we have to care about our health because we're trying to win soccer games. Anyway.
Yeah. Interesting.
We have neglected almost everything that is important, that a nation needs to be strong and healthy. And our government has neglected it. So the least of our worries might be that our Congress has rubber stamped the fusion of our military with a freaking crocodile farm military. And I guess we'll wake up at some point. I don't know if we will or not, but
let's talk about a few of those things real quick. And I just want to remind the audience, they can call on in, they can talk to Colonel Karen, they can talk to me, 561-247-2721. They can even talk to Sleepy J, hanging on out. I would also, too, it's kind of funny that you were talking about that, with the welfare state, because I'm not denying that it doesn't exist, right? I think the argument where that's also a very divisive argument, right? Where the
Yes,
people
it
who
is.
do work are very upset or kind of look down at the people who are getting, any welfare type of program, whatnot. And you did mention too as well when you connect the dots. And I talked about this for years, the addiction process and stuff.
Yeah.
There's a reason why they get that welfare program because the pharmaceutical companies are making a lot of money on that situation. Yeah, the state's going to pay for it, but it goes right back into the hands of big
Yeah,
pharma.
that's right.
And
Exactly.
so for years, I would wake up, we would do shows, and we would be talking about COVID. We would be talking about big pharma, talk about the CARES Act and how that money just doled out, made new billions of dollars for new billionaires. In fact,
Mhm.
now it seems like the military-industrial complex is getting their fair share. Who's next, Karen? After all this ends, this blitzkrieg of war here, war there, emptying out the armament. Once all the contracts are set where we have to settle down because we can't start bombing as much because we have to make sure those weapons are made first, replenished, and then we can start that process again. Who's in line next to make money? What are we going to be talking about next once this is all done? And I do also want to point out as well, I did have this debate with Thomas Massey. It wasn't a debate, it was in the Libertarian Party when he said the reason why the people are coming here is because you get free shit. And I
Mhm.
said, well, no, I don't think that's the reason. I think the majority of the reasons why they come here is because we destabilize their
Yeah.
countries to
Oh, for
begin
sure.
with.
There's no
That
doubt.
is the
No doubt
main
about that.
cause,
Yeah.
the foreign
No doubt.
policy of not allowing Guatemalan farmers to own their own bananas, that it's owned
There you
by,
go.
the
Perfect. Yeah.
old UFC, which is now Dole and Chiquita. I mean, the Dulles
Sure.
brothers, for crying out loud, that were running the CIA,
Yeah.
Alan Dulles, had a heavy stake
Mhm.
in the UFC. So they had
Oh, that
a
sounds like Trump.
yeah,
He's investing in all the things that he's making war on. And yeah.
yeah.
No, I mean,
So what's next? Who's next?
well, what's next is I think our money's gonna be no good. Already the major purchasers of our T-bills is increasingly ourselves. It's increasingly the Federal Reserve basically making electronic money available so that banks in the United States can buy the unsold treasury bills. Um, it's a huge problem. This
It's
friend
such a
of
scam.
Trump's,
It's
it
such a
is a
scam.
scam. It is a
Yeah,
scam, and it's unsustainable. It's almost it has
yeah.
some
Is
elements of
China
it.
dumping those bills too? Did I hear that too as
China's
well?
not. They're off.
They're just
They're not
dumping
buying
them.
it up.
Like, we're out. Yeah.
And Japan has been longtime reliable major. Sometimes they're number one, sometimes they're number two or three, but major purchaser of our T-bills. And Japan is having such issues with their 35, 40 years of stagflation, which is actually what our future will be. I mean, we're in it now and it'll continue. And so maybe we can see how Japan handles it, but we're not Japan. Japan is a very different society and government than what we have. But in any case, Japan isn't buying them. They're actually dumping T-bills because they have issues. They need, liquidate their assets kind of to use. So, yeah. And the smart money globally is not going into the United States for all the reasons we're talking about. It's one thing to say, well, we had a bad president. Let's pick on Biden. Okay. Biden, did he do much? Well, he let wars happen and he was kind of, not in touch. We don't know who was running the country. Well, we're not sure who's running the country now either. Trump is way more damaging, I think, than Biden has been in terms of his impact. He's flailing around doing a lot of things, none of which are positive for our country, but he's doing them. And so that's uncertain. He's creating lots of global economic shortages and uncertainty and things like that. Well, anyway, bottom line is nobody
Finish
that has
that
any
thought, and then we
sense.
have
Yeah,
I'm so
the
sorry,
bottom
Karen.
line
Finish
is
that thought, and yeah.
good money, good investment, good money, not flowing to the United States. It's not about one president or another. It's about our long-term trends. We are not competitive. That's all I'm saying.
It's about the system. It's not about one man. It's about
That's
the
right.
system. We're here.
That's right.
Lieutenant Colonel Ken Kwiatkowski, we have a phone caller. Who are you and where are you calling from?
Good morning, Pasta. It's Miguel Santiago from Fort Lauderdale. How are you?
Good to hear from you, Mr. Santiago. What do you
Right.
got for us? And I'm going to listen, but I'm going to go refill my coffee, so you won't see me for about 30 seconds. I'll be right back. Go ahead, Miguel. Hit it with us.
That's super, because I had a question for Lieutenant Colonel. Really playing off Pasta's comment about loving to have you at the Thanksgiving dinner table. For say teenagers or young adults, my question is, what opportunities are there for teenagers and young adults, and plan if what opportunities are there in the United States military today as compared to pick any time in the past, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, and when has that changed, and why has it changed? So if I was giving advice to a nephew who, was thinking about joining the Army, and he's 17 years old right now, what can I tell him about the opportunities for him? I mean, today versus one generation ago, or even two generations ago, and what has changed, and when did that change come?
Yeah. So the benefits of going into the military today, and who would be benefited by going into the military. And I'm going to say enlisted, but it applies to officers too. The benefit of the military is, in one case, kind of similar to what it's always been, right? Get away from home, right? Go somewhere you haven't been before with a paycheck.
Yeah.
There is that. Can we also do that without the military? Probably so, but I don't know. Anyway, that remains. That has not changed. Unfortunately, we're a mercenary force. So if you want to get involved with immoral and illegal activities such as killing people, abusing people, not helping people, in fact, one of the big selling points of the National Guard is we help people. Increasingly, even those folks don't feel like they're helping people. But I think that has shifted, because we are fighting nonstop, constant wars for the last 30 years. And these wars, none of these wars are core constitutional wars. None of them are declared by Congress. None of them have anything to do with American national security in a real sense for Americans. So that's gone away, and that's changed. So you can still travel. You're not going to defend the country. So if you think you're defending the country because that's what they told you in your school book, not going to happen. Not going to do that.
Yeah.
You're going to be exposed to other Americans from other walks of life. That's still there. That's still good. So if a person says, I want to see the world, see the rest of America, I want to meet people I've never met before. Yeah, you can do that. And you can come out benefited by that. In terms of training, our education system has dropped down so bad that one of the big benefits of the military is they will finish your high school education for you. You will learn to read if you can't read now. If you graduated high school and you can't read and you can't do common math and you don't know how to operate a computer, most people do know the computer part, but you'll learn, they'll fix you up, okay? You will get your GED if you didn't get it. So there's learning. You can learn basic skills that you can take away from the military, come back home and apply. The old days, they used to say you learn discipline. I'm not sure that's the case anymore, but that's still a possibility. Anyway, there's pros and cons. Most of them are cons. I'm sorry. Go ahead. You're trying to ask more question. No.
I'm certainly listening. So
you're good. Okay. And then for officers, it's a corrupt place, and you could go to other places and work and find corruption for sure. But I think you're going to find more corruption in the military, and you're going to be, I think today, and maybe this is always the case, but I do think going in the military as an officer, particularly as an officer or a leader, is staying in it to be a senior NCO, you're going to be receiving orders that you are forced to make a decision on, and these orders will not jive with your moral sense. And I don't presume to know what anybody's moral sense is, but I do know that in our school systems, we raise all of our kids to oppose things like rape, like bullying, like picking on the weak. We want to tell people in our schools, you shouldn't be a bully. You should protect the weak. All of these are moral lessons. They don't come from, we're not teaching them from a church. Of course, there are many people who go in the military, do go to church or some sort of have a religious background. And the things that they learn in their religion and the things that we teach them in our public school are not how we run the military. Okay. Military is about, and never really has been, military is about obedience to authority figures. Many people, 80% of the people are just fine obeying authority figures. And those folks it won't bother them. But the 20% who feel that moral right and wrong has precedence over obeying an incompetent boss or an illegal order, which of course officers and NCOs take a vow to uphold the Constitution and not to obey illegal orders, but the pressure is on to obey whatever you're told. This can be a problem. And I think a lot of folks who, and then we can look at the numbers of folks that have gone into the military, not so much retired, but served their time, served their country, so to speak. And then they come back and they have not just PTSD, but they have emotional and moral issues that relate to things they did that they recognize either at the time or afterwards were wrong. And now they live with that and they don't get any support from it because nobody wants to talk about, the time I screwed up, the time I killed somebody out of emotion or because I was told to, and I didn't think about it at the time. And now it's bugging me and I'm going to take it to my grave. Who wants to talk about that? There's only other veterans will talk about that. Your average family member is going to say, wait a minute, you were serving our country. Of course you killed the raghead. You killed the brown colored person who was an enemy of America. Our president said you had to go. You served the president. No, wrong. But you can't share that. So that is a long-term damage, which is part of what leads to suicide. It's part of what leads to alcohol and drug abuse in our veterans. It's part of what leads to homelessness, a lack of community, right? Because if you're home with a bunch of people that are patting you on the back for the things you did and you feel like you can't tell them, or if you do tell them what you did, they say, well, that was good. That was great. I wish I could go do that. Guess what? Your community has been shattered. You don't have anybody you can talk to. And I do think that's, in addition to drug and alcohol and other things, this is part of why we have a really bad homeless problem for veterans. So all of these things together say, you're better off not going to the military. So then you say, well, the kid says, well, what am I going to do with my life? And I'm like, oh my God, the world is your oyster. You don't even have to go to college. You can, anything you're interested in. MIT has every single course that they offer online. You can get an entire MIT education for free. Yeah. It's free. You can just do it. So what we need to encourage our young people to do, we need to encourage our young people to say, you know what? You're in charge of your life. You have powers that you have not even tapped into. Okay. What do you have discipline? I don't know if you have discipline. Let's see if you have discipline. The military is going to make you run a mile or two. I don't need the military to make me run a mile or two. Okay. Military's going to make you hang from a bar if you're a woman. We don't do pull-ups. We hang from a bar. I don't know. Maybe they do pull-ups now. I doubt it. We hang from a bar for 20 seconds or something. I don't need the military to make me hang from a bar for 20 seconds to build up my biceps or my triceps. I don't need that. Okay. I can do that myself. So I think we need to empower our young people. And let me tell you, I'm an anti-public school person. It's government. I don't like the government. I don't think they do a good job with much of anything. I don't think they do a good job with our public schools. One thing they don't teach our kids.
Very libertarian. Yeah.
I am.
You're very libertarian in that way. I've heard you speak.
That's right. Now, our kids in school are encouraged to submit to authoritarianism. That is what school is. The teacher has a classroom. She can't teach if 5 of the 20 kids or 5 of the 35 kids in that school are causing a problem. So she's got to say, you all got to do the exact same thing and you all got to obey me and I'm going to tell you what to do and you're going to do it. And that's how it's going to be. Well, heck, any kid in public school and most of them in private school have already experienced the military lifestyle. So if that's what you're looking for to join the military, don't worry. You don't need to do that. You've already done that. So how can you actually grow beyond what you've already been indoctrinated into? How can you take control of your own life? And I think when you're 17 and 18 years old, there is nothing more pleasing than to be told by somebody in your family or somebody you respect who's older, who's been around, who encourages you to do your thing and develop yourself and explore your world and take charge and not to be overwhelmed with this idea that the military or the government or anything that's an authoritarian basis. And of course, the military is by nature authoritarian, is going to help you. So I think we have to get them to reject authoritarianism. And I think it's not that difficult. I do think there's a lot of fear amongst young people, their economic fear. They don't want to be stuck in their parents' house until they're 30. Marriages are not happening. People aren't getting married. I'm not saying they have to, but what marriage often was for many people was a stepping off into a new world, new friends, new neighborhood,
Independence. Getting out of
responsibilities.
the house. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. And that is what the military offers too. That was always an attractive thing about the military. You can get out of the house, go to a new place, get away from your parents, explore your world in a safe way. And marriage used to be that. I'm not saying it's for that purpose, but it used to serve that purpose. There are a great many people that used to get married early. They don't anymore. So we have to kind of be sensitive to what 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old people are interested in, and then encourage them to discover that outside of institutions that are authoritarian in nature. And honestly, that's the best advice I can give.
Can I piggyback on that real quickly, Miguel, before you have a follow-up? Can you just hold on 1 second? I did serve in the United States military for a short amount of time, and I got out. I said, hell no, this isn't for me. United States Navy. I actually went to sub school in Groton, Connecticut and stuff. So there are three major reasons why, when I was in boot camp. Was that sound behind you? Let's mute your mic real quick. Okay, beautiful. Number one reason is the employment, right? And I don't mean to talk down on people, but I did meet a lot of small educated, low informed people from, all around the United States that really, to tell you the truth, if the military wasn't there for them, they probably would have a hard time finding a job. It just, it was that way. I don't want to pick on these people, but they didn't get necessarily a great education. They weren't they didn't think for themselves. They were people who just kind of fell in line and whatnot. So a lot of those people joined the military to get that paycheck. The second one, I would say, was the fact that they thought they were going to get a trait that was going to help them. It was a stepping stone, I would say. And the funny thing was, is so many people like, oh, I want to learn how to repair these radar systems, these sonar systems, whatnot. Well, they only teach you how to operate those things for your first enlistment. They don't teach you how to repair those things until you re-enlist and you get another, a re-enlistment. So if you're in there for a 4 or 5 year enlistment, your initial term, because a lot that happened with submarines, where they would say you have to have a 5-year enlistment and whatnot. They wouldn't teach you how to fix those things until your second enlistment. So that was a reason why people joined, and they were really pissed off about that stuff. You mean I can't open up that puppy and work on that radar until I sign up for another 6 years? So you have to work 12 years before you even look inside that, and who knows what they're going to teach me then? So they were bamboozled. And the third reason was the Navy College Fund, right? Military, GI Bill, whatnot. College is so damn expensive that they joined to get that GI Bill or that Navy College Fund. Those were the three reasons that I thought when I was in the military why people joined the military itself. The fourth reason would be, hey, I joined the Navy to see the world, and all I saw was the sea. And in this case, in submarines, all I saw was the inside of a hollowed out vessel. So, I mean, those are the reasons that I think why the majority of the reasons why people join the military. And Miguel, I'll hand it back over to you. But I also do want to say, I thought when you were talking about Thanksgiving dinner, I thought we were putting something together over here. Something really fun and special, man. So I got a little excited. Man, Karen, if you get to let some Italian people cook for you for Thanksgiving, we can make a whole thing out of it. If I got to go to Ohio, then I'm going to Ohio. Go ahead, Miguel.
Well, bro, when you get back in town, if you want to plan that Florida meetup, you're welcome to host it at my house. So
got it.
Anyway.
Got it.
My follow-up is Lieutenant Colonel made a great point about a really enlightening point for me, is that everything you could do in the military today, if you're going for training and education, you can get that at MIT, and you just have to take matters into your own hands and take responsibility for your own life. And if you are a disciplined person and a motive, that will take initiative, that is a good answer for those kids I'm asking about. But my follow-up, we were talking about quality of life and opportunities for young adults or teenagers that are thinking about this as a career. Would you say there was a dividing line right at the kind of 9/11 era? Was there a shift, perhaps because of our shift in policy? Would you see that there's a difference in terms of the quality of life and opportunities for the young adults we're talking about pre 9/11 versus post 9/11? Is there would you say there's a dividing line there? Was the dividing line that? Is the dividing line Vietnam? Was the dividing line World War II?
Yeah. That's a good question. I think in many ways it was World War II. So that brings us back to the greatest generation. I call it mythology. It's not really mythology, but whatever. But honestly, the military has fallen behind in terms of leading technologies and things like that. Like if you wanted to do, my dad was in the Navy in between Korea and Vietnam, but he was in between wars. So he didn't see any combat or anything. And he learned how to repair stuff. So I guess back in the late 50s, they, if you went in the military, you could repair stuff. Of course, the technology was stuff that could be repaired with soldering irons, and as opposed to clean rooms and, microscopic chip repair, stuff like that. So it's a little different environment. And he took that training that he had, that experience he had in 4 years of the Navy, and he worked for RCA for, I don't know, many, many years, doing much the same things that NASA was doing. But the things he learned, he translated that into a civilian living. And that ended, that probably ended about the time they made you go for the second term before you could repair anything. So that was before 9/11. And I think our military has been in imperial decline since at least the 1990s, when we went into Iraq the first time, where we call that a victory. We call that first Iraq war. That was a victory. That was a victory against a military that had no Air Force and no Navy. They had ground defense and they had an army. And we went in there with all of our stuff, overwhelming force, and we call it a victory. So that we were kidding ourselves about that. That was a stacked victory, if anything. And so we have our military at that point has fallen behind. We've become so arrogant for the last 30, 40 years on how great we are, because we're lying to ourselves, that we didn't really innovate. And when we did innovate, we did it the easy way, or the way you just pay money. We contracted out so many things, and this is fine. I mean, it helps the military industrial complex make a ton of money, but going in the military means you're really increasingly just a merc. You're just a mercenary. And most of them are not on the front line. So you're a mercenary inside of the office environment, almost, in many cases. And so, this is very not rewarding. Okay. It's not financially rewarding. It's not emotionally rewarding. It's not patriotically rewarding. And you're not learning skills that you can really take and build your business with, or get a good job for a air conditioning and heating company that will support your family. And again, meanwhile, we gutted the industrial, we outsourced everything in this country. So those jobs that you might take your skill set from maybe your second tour in the Navy, now you have a repair machine skill set. You take it back to your local community. But guess what? We're just buying throwaway. Now we don't fix anything. We just ship it in from South Korea and China, and we throw it away. Taiwan, we throw it away. When nobody's repairing anything. The repairs are simply not done. And anybody who's ever worked or had a problem with something, you go to YouTube with some dude on YouTube is going to tell you how to repair it. If you try to call customer service at any major appliance provider or anything else, they're just going to send you a new one. Nobody's going to repair anything. And if they have to repair something, it's a goat rope. So if you want to learn how to do something, go to YouTube. And I hate to advertise for YouTube because, they're such a politically compromised agency and just awful. But and it can go to Rumble and everything else. But you look at what your friends and neighbors and people, basically the internet, with the sophistication that we have with people can take a video and it can be online almost immediately, and it can teach you how to do anything. In fact, most of the stuff I've learned in the last 30 years physically to do, I've learned by watching a YouTube video. And I don't think I'm unusual in that regard. I think almost everybody does that. Like, hey, how do I clean this thing? What is this thing? it's what do I do with this thing? Look on YouTube will tell you, Rumble will tell you, it's all out there. And guess who's telling you that? It's not YouTube telling you that. It's your friends and neighbors around the world that are telling you that. And they don't need a bureaucracy, and they don't need to boss you around. They don't need to take your money. They're helping you out. Free exchange of information and ideas. And I think that's the saving grace that the whole world has as these empires fall. We will still have the opportunity to share our little bits of knowledge with everybody else who might need it at the time that they need it. And as long as we have that, I think we're going to be fine. But how do we really recognize that for the great value that it provides, and not think that, well, we have to go work for the military, or we got to go work for a government contractor. He'll pay me a lot of money and I'll have a job that's secure. Maybe we're overvaluing security. And again, young people are the best for this, because an 18-year-old, at least they were 17, 18, 19, 20 when I was a kid, we didn't, especially the boys, but everybody really, our brains are not really developed so that we put security first. That's something we evolve over time. We got to be 50 or 60 before we stop jumping.
I can confirm. I have an 18-year-old daughter.
Yeah, exactly. So they already do not prioritize. They're not fearful. They're not prioritizing security, whether it's job security or any other kind of security. They're out exploring, living life, learning from mistakes. Also, that's important. So let's encourage them to do that and not be scared. And we shouldn't tell our kids, you're never going to have a job. You need to learn a skill, go in the military. That's not good advice. Not
those
good
days
advice.
are done. Yeah. And
These
kids nowadays, they're trying to be the next TikTok star rather than try to be part of society.
And
that has a lot to do with not being part of society, but that has a lot to do with individualism, by the way.
I've got a little bit of advice for something to tell your kids. So my ex, she always made my daughter go do a lot of like volunteering for special needs kids, like because she's a theater kid, right? And so she'd go dressed up as Spider-Man and make a bunch of kids happy and stuff. And that later has helped her, find work and stuff. So I mean,
I bet,
get them volunteering, man. Like I'm telling you, it does good for the kids and young adults.
That's so true. That's so important. Yeah. And when you say volunteering, it's really living life in your community. It's engaging. Yeah. It's knowing who your neighbors are. In fact, it used to be, we don't trust our neighbors now. No kid, remember, and even when I was a kid, they said, oh, if somebody offers you candy in a car, you need to run and scream. You don't go in, if somebody shows you a puppy, you don't, we were paranoid about kids being stolen. And we have this societal fear of anybody we don't know, which actually serves the government, serves the state very well. That's why we have so many cops, because we're also scared crapless about anybody new in our neighborhood or our neighbors. We don't know our neighbors. But the counter to that, of course, is to get to know people. And one of the things that the phones do, we all see people, every picture of people on sidewalks is nobody's looking where they're going. They're all got their face in their phone. And this is not even American. This is anywhere around the world pretty much. But we should teach people to walk with their eyes open and see what's around them and observant, to be observant. And I think volunteering helps that, right? Because you're saying, let's say let's just say you're working in a kitchen, you're dishing out food. You're not looking at your phone. Both hands are occupied. You're looking at a person. You're communicating with someone. You're trying to figure out what do they need, what's coming next, engaging with people. And that skill, I think, is one that technology has, even though we can watch videos and learn everything we possibly want to learn, we sometimes are not developing those human skills that we need. And we need those. And that volunteering certainly taps into all of that, because now
kids are addicted to their tablets. They're addicted to their phones nowadays. It's terrible. But Karen, please talk lightly when you talk about kids getting kidnapped, because you're going to give the flock camera people more reason to put up more flock cameras. You're not your kids getting kidnapped with flocks everywhere.
I'm saying they told us that, so we would be scared. That's that's the same. That's the same mentality that supports the flock camera thing.
Exactly.
And I hate to say, I don't have a kid that's a teenager. I would be afraid of having a kid that's a teenager, because I would probably say something that would encourage him to take down a flock camera. And then my kid would have his life messed up, because they're really mad about people that damage flock cameras. And I would probably show him a funny TikTok or X video that says, here's what you don't do with flock cameras. Like, don't bring your phone. I would never, all this stuff that's really tongue in cheek, advising people to mess up the flock cameras. And as a parent, I would be a bad parent, and I would say, I hate those flock cameras so much. And my kid would probably think that I support him in doing this, because I probably do, but the consequences are harmful, because we live in a not just an authoritarian state, but a totalitarian state. And so this is another problem. We have a lot of freedom, liberty. We should not bend the knee to authoritarianism, but we live in a totalitarian state that will punish us for not doing it. So we owe everybody we know to teach them how to, I shouldn't say be careful, but understand what you're dealing with when you mess with the state. It's not a small, tiny state that the founders thought, oh, we have a little tiny state, we're going to keep it in a little tiny. It's a massive state. It's interconnected. Flock is an icon, the whole Flock network and the things that they share and all the massive databases that we're learning about, and all the data being processed in the data centers that they're building that they must have. Well, this is power. This is power. This is, maybe we do need to watch Terminator again and just get a sense of the awful power the state has over us. And we need to protect our kids, because, we have a prison industry. It's commercialized, but we incarcerate, and have this statistic has been good for America for years. We incarcerate more per capita than any other country, more than the communists do, if there are communists, more than China, more than Russia. We incarcerate them. It's a business. Some of those other countries we compare ourselves to, they either have less crime, maybe they kill more people, maybe the state, kills them. We know Israel certainly does that. We know if you're not Israeli, a lot of countries have very harsh laws that maybe they don't need a big prison industry, but we have a big prison industry because it makes a lot of money for investors like BlackRock and others. So this surveillance state, this totalitarian state that we're living in, can be very dangerous to our young people. So we do owe them to not only not encourage them to go into the military and to advance their own independence, but they need to do that in an environment that hates independence, that hates individualism, really. So it's a fine line. As parents, well, of course, no parent ever stops worrying about their kid. There's no doubt about that. You always worry.
It's challenging because we have to change society as a whole. And by the way, I don't know if you saw the banner I put up when you're talking about when George Bush won the war in Iraq and everything. I put up, mission accomplished. Miguel Santiago, take the last 30 seconds. And we got to see if there's anybody else on the phone lines. But please, if you'd like to finish off the statement, your question, the response, anything, the floor is now yours, Maestro. 30 seconds. Go ahead.
The question was very, very enlightening, and I really got the answer I was looking for. Just as a follow-up, somebody was making the point yesterday. What's the last war the United States won? And somebody said, when the first Iraq War, and Lieutenant Colonel made a great point that, the deck was stacked there. But if you think about it, you go back to World War II, that really was kind of like the watershed moment, and nothing's been the same since then. And every one of our military ventures, it's hard to say they were successful after that. So
and that was a lie too, right?
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much. But really quickly, when you talk about World War II, all we did was take in more Nazis, Operation Paperclip, so we can fight future wars, right? And we kind of waited things out. And let me just say this too much as well, Miguel, as you leave. We might not win wars per se on the scoreboard, whatever the case may be, but the military-industrial complex doesn't care who wins the war. They don't care who loses the war. All they care is that we have the war, because then they win financially with their pockets.
Exactly right. That's exactly.
You have a great day, my friend. Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Oh, wow. Basically what I got out of that is like, we're screwed any way you look at it. I know. I think just society is screwed. I mean, I do feel for, people who have children out there. And like you said in the beginning of your statement, it'd be terrifying to have a teenager right now. It would be. I mean, there is no sense of community. It's individualism. These kids are just trying to be the next TikTok star. And, I can't even blame them. I mean,
Yeah.
What are you to do? They're just so tied up in bullshit. But I don't know. I mean, sometimes, there's a lot of people out there, Karen, who would talk about the fact that United States citizens don't have to worry the way other countries have to worry about bombs being dropped on their head, right? They have that
Yeah.
privilege of sort to being aloof, to being, their heads in the cloud or whatever, or consumed with other stuff, and
Mhm.
hypnotized on their phone or their tablet and stuff. And I'm not saying that I wish that on anybody, but there's something true to that statement. The fact that, American citizens, in a way, are so, I don't want to say the word privileged, but they don't have to worry the
Yeah.
concerns that they have around the globe and all these other countries. And
It's
I don't
true.
know how you square that circle, because I surely don't wish bombs to being dropped on citizens of the United
No,
States, but they don't have that fear. And
that's
since they don't have that fear, they don't have to care that their tax dollars, and I get it. You don't pay your taxes and say, well, I don't want that money going over there to bomb these people. You pay your tax dollars so you don't get fucking arrested. Right. So
That's
I
right.
get it. So
That's right.
how do
No,
you square this
yeah.
circle?
Yeah, it's that is true. That is true.
Yeah. It's such a
Supposedly,
quagmire.
there's a body of thought out there that says the taxes are voluntary, because it actually, even the IRS documentation makes it sound like, what a great honor it is for you to pay your taxes. It's a duty, whatever. But it's not. You pay your taxes. Well, first off, they're taken out of everything in advance. It's automated.
Yeah.
That you pay them. You're not going to get those back. But if you happen to end up owing taxes, and not everybody does, a vast majority of people don't. But if you don't pay what the government assesses that you owe, you go to jail. And they are very good about going after little guys, medium guys, and very, very occasionally, the Millicans of the world, or people
Wait a
that
second, Colonel. Are you saying that all those IRS agents that were hired when Katie Porter from California told me they were going after millionaires and billionaires, that's not true, that they'd hired all these people to go after us?
That's right.
To squeeze us even more?
Look, it's the same reason we went into Iraq with, 750 million, I don't know what we had, big army. And Iraq had no Air Force and no Navy. And basically they had old Russian Soviet era air defenses and things, and an army trained, by the Ba'ath, which, and yes, it was a hardened army because we had helped them fight Iran for 8 years, but still, we stacked the deck. And that's how the IRS looks at who they're going to go after. Do I want to go after somebody that can hire 5 lawyers, 3 lawyers, 1 lawyer, or no lawyer? I'm going after the guy that can't hire a lawyer because he has no idea how to do it. He doesn't have one, can't afford it. And that's the guy I'm going to go after. And then I'm going to threaten the living crap out of him. And I'm going to get my money and I'm going to get my promotion. That's how they work. That's how the bureaucracy works. That's human nature. So anytime the government tells you what they're going to do, you need to look below that and say, well, what are they really going to do? Well, we know what they're going to do. Take the path of least resistance, call it a win, take your money. If you don't have power, and this is from the Peloponnesian War that the guy wrote the history of, the strong do what they will, and the weak suffer what they must. And that's the reality of your dealing as an American citizen with your government. You think, oh, I can vote. Well, we voted for Congress. They don't do crap for us. They didn't even want to debate the fact that they're merging our military with a small, tiny country that we have no mutual defense treaty with. But they're doing it. They want to talk about it. We're doing it. We elected all these people. All the people elected all these people. Congress is probably the closest thing you have to a popular representation. That was the design of it. But it's usually, 800,000, 1.5 million people in a congressional district. And we get to pick a guy or a gal. And we pick that guy or gal and we say, hey, you're our voice in Washington. And what do? They shut you down. They don't want you. They're not doing your will, your bidding. They're not listening to you. You have to show up with the dollar bills. Then they count the bills and they say who gets what they want. So that's not, I don't know if that's that doesn't look like democracy. It is actually how democracy often works. And it works that way in this country. But we have no voice. We have no representation. And the government bureaucracy goes after those who can't fight. They made every once in a while they make an error. When the ICE killed that guy who was a medic, a nurse or whatever. Remember up in Minnesota? I think it was Minnesota. Yeah. So this is after they killed the lesbian because, Trump's government can kill a lesbian. Nobody who's going to get mad about that. The Democrats.
Yeah. You're talking about before Alex Preddy. I forgot Sarah
Yeah,
something. The first.
yeah.
Shame on me for
The
forgetting
lady.
her name.
Right.
Yeah.
And they killed, and the video of that, which came out really simultaneously, but the government denied it. Really, that was a cop shooting. Basically, that's all you can say. She wasn't this. What they said she was trying to do was not what she was trying to do.
She was trying to flee or whatnot, and he said his life was in danger.
She was trying to avoid him. Yeah. And do what they told her to do, which was to move your car.
Well, Karen, she shouldn't have been there in the first place. I'm like, what are you talking about? What happened to all you constitutionalists who said it's okay in the Constitution to observe the police whenever they want
and film them also?
Yes.
So when they got the other guy later, not too long after that,
Alex Preddy.
This guy, Alex Preddy, who was not armed, but it turned out Preddy was the kind of guy the government can't really kill publicly because he was working. He was
a nurse for veterans.
A nurse for veterans.
People who had no veterans who had no advocacy. Right. He was that person. Like there was a veteran with no family there. He would say a prayer. He was the staple modern citizen. Of what we saw. And an American, and yet he was shot.
Yeah, and when that happened, that's when Trump had to back off and fire what's her face and all this, try to reshape it, try to get the attention off of what they did, because that's like the IRS going after a guy who can hire 2 lawyers instead of no lawyers. That's the guy that can fight back, and Preddy couldn't fight back, but Preddy's reputation stood on its own, and that served to mobilize this contempt of the ICE even more broadly too, because there is something.
And I was there for that. I covered that. Really? I went and talked to those. I was there for that march where there's over 100,000 people in 4-degree weather. It was 4 degrees. Wow. Like I was hiding in my car until I can because it was so ridiculously cold. But that's another part. I know there were people that were there. That were just, I don't know what to say. I know there was a decent amount of woke people there, right? That were taking advantage of the situation. But the majority of people, and it was organic, there was no funding coming in from anywhere else. You can look at the signs. Like I remember Fred Edward, who was in the chat, he saw us live, he was looking at the signs. And that's a good way to tell what's going on, because you see the signs out there. If they're not uniform and they're not printed off and somebody didn't foot the bill to make them, like, for instance, the pussy hats from the Women's March or the No Kings, everybody was making their own side. Yeah. You saw this organic coming out where people were just like, listen, I don't care how you feel. We love our immigrant community. We're going to protect them. And we also have more people. It's kind of crazy because whoever's in power no longer cares about the Constitution. The Republicans love the Constitution until they get in power. Then they rip it up as soon as they get in power. Same with the Democrats. I saw mostly, and there were more Democrats, obviously, than Republicans at those rallies, them handing out the Constitution. And I was like, well, where were you guys at during the medical freedom movement when you guys were okay with mandates? And I think you said maybe on Judge Knapp, like, those people might have gotten the street for that. But, those people, a lot of those people, they don't care about the Constitution if it was law enforcement coming to enforce a mandate. And you're absolutely right. Mm-hmm. So it is kind of mixed bag of what's going on. Everything nowadays seems so fucking confusing.
It is confusing, both globally and domestically, because things are changing rapidly. We're in a state of flux right now. The new world order is emerging, and it's not including the United States. This is incredibly upsetting for the powers that be, that have ridden to massive wealth and control based on new world order models that centered on the West. And those Western economies and political systems have already weakened, and now they're starting to crumble at various weak points. They're actually starting to crumble away. So the West, it's supposed to be about liberty, is now backing genocide and becoming totalitarianism. We see this in the United States. We see it in Europe. All of the countries that support Israel are becoming totalitarian. ICE gets their training and their equipment and many of their tactics from their Israeli IDF trainers. Yeah. So, and this has gone on for a long time, which we didn't see. But when you see what we call poorly trained ICE officers. They're not poorly trained ICE officers. They're improperly trained ICE officers. They're trained on Israel on purpose. Sure. So anyway, but we're seeing it, and it's nice when all the various parties can at least hold up the Bill of Rights and talk about the Constitution. The Constitution is not perfect. It's also not followed. The Bill of Rights is probably the most perfect thing that we have, and it's not perfect, but people looking at it every once in a while is not a bad thing, because and really the thing we should look at more, and it is the 250th anniversary year, and I haven't actually done any commemoration of that 200 I haven't thought about it, like something to celebrate, but the Declaration of Independence is a fantastic rage document. Okay. It's a document filled with rage.
Yes.
And it should be very appealing to everyone, because what the Declaration does is it says, and this is what makes it really good. It says we didn't do anything wrong. Well, of course, everybody does something wrong, right? But it says we, the people here, we, these colonists, we didn't do anything wrong, but we were long suffering and we were wronged. And I'm gonna tell you something. You go into, I don't care if you go into church, you go into a stadium, you go in anywhere you go. That is a galvanizing message. We didn't do anything wrong. We were wronged. We have been abused. We have been stolen from. We have been imprisoned unjustly. We have had our rights removed. This is what you guys do. Bam, 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 bam. You do all this stuff, and guess what? We're done. Now, it doesn't say we're going to kill you for doing it. It says we are going to divorce you from doing it. This War of Independence was really a secession from the British Empire. It was a secession movement. You don't like to use the word secession, but it was a divorce. And it wasn't really velvet. It took a while of fighting. We obviously had good friends in Russia and France, and we hit particularly France, and we hit Great Britain when they were heavily indebted from the 7-Year War. King George was already held in contempt because he was nutso. I guess he had the syphilis. His brain was deteriorating, and all of the numbers lined up. So here we're fighting a guy who has no moral leadership, no moral control. He's wasted the wealth of Great Britain. They have other issues in India at the same time that they have our issues, but which one's better? They have to make a decision. So, and we're separated by a great ocean that's not that easy to cross. So all the timing was good. We were blessed. People say blessed by God. Well, maybe we were, maybe we weren't, but certainly the timing was good for us to prevail. And it still was a hard fight.
I don't know, Karen, though, but I really feel like it was a bunch of white rich landowners that were seceding from another bunch of rich white landowners, and they threw the people in to help their cause. Hey, man, we want to separate. These people are behind us, and all they did was separate from the crown so that they control the people over there. They can start taxing the people here, not them.
There's a great book, and I didn't read the book, but I've watched the interview with the author some years ago. And he talked about the coup in Philadelphia. So the Constitution is not really directly, in many ways, related to the independence thing or even the Declaration. The Constitution is what you just said. We're going to run this place now, and we're going to be in charge. We're going to be in charge now, and we're going to do it like this. And even at that time, the Federalists were called. Many of them were called, the pro-British aspect. They said, well, we don't want a king. Well, wait, maybe we do want a king. I want to be a king. Whatever. They had to debate this. But the Constitution is a little bit different. And also remember, the Constitution is only linked to the Declaration of Independence in those first 10 amendments. Because the original Constitution came out, it had no first 10 amendments. It had no restrictions on the government because, you know what? The king had no restrictions. Very limited parliamentary restrictions on the British king in the 1700s. So they didn't think about that. And it was the anti-federalists who said, we're not going with your new government program because it looks just like what we just got rid of, or we thought what you told us you were getting rid of. And now you're putting it on top of us. So here's what we want. And the 9th and 10th, we forget about the 9th and 10th, but that says if it's not here, the right is reserved to the people in the states, right? Both of those talk about rights that aren't mentioned. So that's kind of really important and can be leveraged
Yeah.
Or you can throw the whole thing out and have a revolution and start from scratch. I don't really care. But 9th and 10th is where the states and the people reserved power to rein in the federal government. But now we go, wait a minute. The federal government hauls in 35% of the GDP, is directly collected and controlled and administered by the federal government. It is a war state. We have a Department of War that is a standing army. We got one of the reasons they had the revolution is the standing army that the Brits had in the colonies, and they said we don't want that. We should the militias can keep order. We don't need that. So
yesterday in a conversation we were talking about you, and it was like, you know, I said that, you know, really, to tell you the truth, it's kind of crazy. And by the way, I would like to say congratulations to Drive Time. I think this was the first time ever we had 50 people on YouTube and 50 people on Rumble watching at one time. So we had 100 people watching at one time. And this is still early in this whole process. You know, I've done this before. It's very humbling to start back over again. You know, almost 9 years ago, when I started my show with Fiorella Isabel from the Combo Couch, which we now call the Truth Wire, we had moments like this, and then we just caught on and exploded. And I don't know if that's possible today, because I think the suppression is real, and they are going to really keep people down. You know, we don't know what's going on. We don't have the keys to the kingdom, so we can't see what's going on behind closed doors. We can only take or listen or believe what they tell us. It's like our election system. There's no transparency there. So, but I do want to say thank you so much to everybody who has made this possible. But I do think, Karen, and the reason why we were talking about you is because, you know, what we're talking about right now, and we're talking about 1776, the independence. And by the way, on 4th of July, I got to watch most of that movie. That's one of my favorite movies. It's called 1776. It's a musical about the First Continental Congress and the signing of the Declaration of Independence. It's really fun. You know, they have characters like John Adams and Ben Franklin and Thomas Jefferson, and it's just a great thing to do. But when you're talking about what they were going through and what they were thinking of signing, and it was about, you know, that this divorce from the king to these other rich white landowners. And I do have to point that out. You know, I'm saying that they were white, rich landowners because, you know, in the Continental Congress in 1776, in the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they had decisions about trying to abolish slavery, and they couldn't get it done, right? So the other white landowners, like, we're not going to, especially in the South, and we're not going to fuck over our economy. We're going to keep this shit going. So I have to kind of point that out. But really, isn't it the best way when you say about taking care of the people? Isn't that socialism? I know that libertarians have a problem because they want to be anarchist and free of everything. But really, when you look at it, the crux of it, isn't socialism or a form of socialism where you're going to take money, taxes, whatever, but they're going to go to the benefit of all? What is it? What is the saying of communism? For the benefit of a few, for the benefit of all. I forget the saying. For the rights of a few, for the benefit of all.
Each according to his ability, from
exactly.
each according to his, yeah.
Isn't there something to that though, Karen? I know you're going to have a lot to say.
There is, if you can take the government authoritarian structure out of it. If you can take the bureaucracy out of it, and we haven't been able to succeed in doing that. I mean, because one of the things people say is, you know, this from each according to his ability to each according to his need. That's Marx, that's Lenin. It's also Jesus Christ. Okay, it's
exactly.
Also,
Jesus was a socialist, for fucking crying out loud.
But
I'm sorry, I'm cursing a lot today.
But Jesus was also a great libertarian. Okay, and
he was an anarchist.
Yeah. Well, no, he wasn't. See, and that's the thing. Anarchy implies that there's no ruling structure, there's no rules. That's not the case. Community and people, even in a family. I mean, actually, they say the best socialist model is the family model, right? I say family. A head of household of some sort, a family that the kids don't get a vote, or if they do, it's I'm sorry about these ducks out there.
We know you got. Listen. On the thumbnail, we got you petting a lamb.
Yeah.
A lamb or a goat, Sleepy. So I mean, come on. We know what you're doing out there. So
yeah, but you know, the family. Let's say you have two parents, one parent, doesn't matter. You got a person in charge, maybe two people in charge. They have more rights and responsibilities than the subordinate children, and then the kids get to participate in a controlled type of democracy occasion, like what kind of ice cream we're going to buy, but they don't get to participate in where we're going to move next, usually, or if dad going to take this new job. That's going to be more weighted to the seat. So that's a kind of socialism, and it works in the family very well. In fact, it's necessary because the weak in the family are the everybody, the children are weak. They don't have power. They need protection. The women's lib is not going to like this, but the women also need protection.
We do have a caller, by the way. I'm so sorry to interrupt, but I just realized that we had a caller waiting over there.
Oh,
and
okay,
I think it's great that in drive time in the morning. And by the way, when I said Jesus is an anarchist, what I was trying to say, he wasn't. He was more of a collectivist, but the only ruler he wanted was God. And when I think of anarchism, I think rules, just no rulers. Caller, who are you? Where are you calling from?
Good morning, Pasta and Karen. This is Katie.
Hey, Katie.
How are you this morning?
Where are you calling from today?
Good.
I'm in North Georgia, my dear.
You got it. What do you got for us?
Let me start by saying my father served in Japan as an officer. My mother accompanied him. They adopted 2 Japanese American war orphans and had to get them attached to a bill to get them into this country. So I have a little bit of appreciation and understanding for the military. My question to Colonel Karen is, what specific challenges she faced as a female in the services and how she progressed through the ranks, given the issues that may come with service as a female?
Let's let the Colonel tackle that one. Go ahead, Colonel.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I had a typical career path. First off, women, let's see, I went in the military in 83. In 76 is when they first let women go into the academy. So, there were, and of course we had women serving in the military, World War II and Vietnam and all these other, women had been in the military. So I'm saying that the pathway had been forged before I got there. I think in the Air Force, even when I entered the Air Force, it was probably 1 in 6 people were women. So we were a minority in terms of gender, but not isolated in any way. I grew up with brothers.
It's definitely different than when my father served in the 50s. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, I get that.
Oh my gosh. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And also women's units in World War II and even I think after that were often gender segregated, so it would be a women's Air Corps and stuff like that. So I didn't have to deal with anything like that. There were women officers, older colonels, not many. There were some. So there were some what you could call female role models. And like anything, the way to get ahead in any bureaucracy is to pretty much blend in, except you want to beat everybody, but you also don't want to be different than everybody. We wear a uniform for a reason. So, well, I was relatively competitive for the most part. I was also, as I evolved, I am who I am. So, I bumped into a few things, but most of those things were not gender related. At the same time, the way I grew up at home and the attitudes that I had was I consider myself an equal. Interestingly enough, I was married to my husband the whole entire time I was active duty. I got married in college. So I was never a single. Say again?
Was your husband in the service?
No, my husband was not in. No. And that's some interesting stories there. Yeah. So that made me a little bit different. In some ways, it made me more like my peers. I had a spouse at home, but he wasn't welcome at the officers' wives' activities for the most part. He did have some experiences there, but what I was is I really blended in my role. I was the breadwinner for my family. I was, I followed the rules. I did the education. I did all the things you need to do to get promoted. I worked hard. I mean, who doesn't? I worked hard. Right. But My experience is probably a little bit different because I read things, and even at the time I was in the military, I would read about sexual harassment, abuse of women. I actually saw some, and it's going to sound really like I'm an exceptionalist, and I don't think that's it. But and maybe I'm in denial. I don't consider that I was ever sexually harassed. Now, I'll tell you the worst thing I experienced in terms of being feeling like I was being singled out or harassed didn't relate to being a female. It related to the fact that I had a Polish last name, which I married into. And you've heard of Polish jokes, right? I don't know if they're legit anymore. They're very funny.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I have a
How
little
do you
bit of that
sink
in
a
my-
Polish submarine?
Oh, I don't know.
Snock.
Oh my gosh. Oh my God.
Whoa.
There was I remember when I think I was a major at the time, and there was for some reason Polish jokes were being made, and for the first time, and I had to be like 30 something years old, 35 maybe, and for the first time I said, wow, those Polish jokes, I feel like they're addressing them to me, even though they weren't, but it was because, obviously my name ends in a ski. So I felt a little bit like put upon or whatever. But for the most part, I have really thick skin and I'm oblivious to things. Like, you know how, well, I don't know. This is just, I don't want to be an exceptionist, but I'm not a very good, I don't think I was ever really good at being aware of, like, if somebody's coming on to you, I would like not know that.
You wouldn't know if somebody was hitting on you.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Karen,
Nah, that's how I am. I get it.
And also too, I have to say, this is not exceptional, but I don't drink and I never did drink. So guess what? I don't spend time in bars. If I go TDY somewhere, I'm not going to bars with coworkers. So I think in some ways, because of just how I was raised and my habits, the fact that I was a mother of 4, married to my husband from the day one I got in the military, I had a kind of community and a connection that didn't make me as vulnerable to being pushed around. And also, like I said, I had 2 brothers. We were all very close in age. So if they pushed me around, I pushed them back. So I just grew up in a way that I was comfortable with men, oblivious to stuff they might be doing. And if I did notice it, I would react immediately. Now, I'm not saying it's women's fault when they get harassed. It is not. Obviously, that clearly is not the case. But I don't remember getting harassed very much. And I'll tell you, my sense of things is that women, and this is going to sound so sexist, but I'm 65 years old. You're going to have to forgive me. It is said that women are oriented or raised to be pleasers. And I don't think that's not arguable, right? It's certainly women in my generation were encouraged to go along, get along, to be pleasers, to try to make other people happy.
Right.
And I am not that kind of person as much. I think I care about other people. I don't like people to be sad. I certainly don't like to abuse people, but I don't have a need to make men happy. Okay. And you can ask my husband, he'll guarantee you that for 43 years, it has not been my objective. So this is kind of why I think I didn't have the experiences that so many people report, even today in the military, even in our, I don't know if it's DEI or whatever, but, a very tolerant military, a military that says, everybody has the right to express who they are, to be who they are, not be harassed, not be bullied, right? That's nothing wrong with that. But anyway,
there seems to be a generational change. I don't remember, well, there was harassment, but more than that, there was being ignored, because I'm 68. So
Yeah.
In addition to growing up serving my father, my uncle, every other man in the house, we made their plates for dinner. I can't imagine anybody making my plate. That implies that as a male, I'm unable to select my own food, which is just ridiculous.
Yes.
But it wasn't
Come spend
so
some
much
time
the
at my house.
harassment.
Come spend some time at my house, Katie. I'd love to serve you food all day. So I have all the traits.
You're right.
Some
That's a good
people would
point.
say it's historically, what I'm saying, that's the role I play and stuff. But I was also very close to my mother. And I think so many things are circumstantial, right, Colonel? Because,
Absolutely.
and Katie, this might, add to, what's going on nowadays in Iraq and those particular wars. I think there were a lot of rapes that were going on that the military buried, right? They buried it because it was just like, first of all, you put people in these situations, you put men without any type of, release whatsoever, and then you throw a woman into the mix. Things could happen. But the military would suppress that information too as well, because it was a stain on them. So I think a lot of what has happened today, the dirtiness in the military, is circumstantial. And just from my own particular life, you were describing your life, circumstantial. Yeah, my dad and I were close, but I was like a mama's boy. And in my life right now, even right now to this day, I have so many women friends that I'm close to that I don't look at myself as like the average normal. I'm friends with everybody, don't get me wrong, but I do have a lot of strong women in my life, and for some reason I find myself seeking that out when it comes to friendship. You know what I'm saying? But yet I'm still a man. So I think a lot of what we're experiencing and what Karen was talking about when she went into the military, so much of it compared to what your father was, it's circumstantial. What's going on around there nowadays? Now you can throw out the baby with the bathwater because there's so much chaos and craziness and everything that's going on that who knows what the hell is going to happen nowadays. And they don't even do proper psychological tests, I think, when they're taking troops in. There's such a need to get people on the front line that it's almost like the Reagan days. They're just taking anybody. Just grab them and throw them in line. Go ahead, Stacy. Katie,
didn't
sorry.
even do it when my father served, because I have some of his military records that show that he had some very troubling psychological issues that the Army was well aware of. And rather than that being a problem with his service, they used that.
For
they
sure.
used his sociopath traits. And the other thing that I get from my mother's diaries when she was in Japan with him was the culture of drinking and alcoholism among the officers and the wives. And it seems like that was, well, they both brought it home with them, which, wasn't good. But yeah, I was born to older parents. I was the youngest of four, all-girl family. So we didn't have a reference point really for a strong father image. In fact, the whole mystique of you don't understand men and men don't even need to bother to try and understand you was a generational thing, because I have a best friend in her 40s who served in the Navy, and she grew up with brothers. She was a tough chick and hid her pregnancy so she could serve on the Reagan during its commission. And I can't imagine anything any tougher than having your first pregnancy, being 3 months pregnant, hiding it, and being on a ship, being actually a rescue swimmer. So that attitude of toughness being accepted in a female, I think, changed a lot in like 20 years now. Has it been good overall? I can't say that.
Yeah.
There certainly have been some gains, but some losses along the way. But just your perspective as a female officer is one that I was very curious about, and I appreciate you taking the time to tell me a little bit about yourself. I adore Wednesdays. Thank you so much for being here.
Katie, you're amazing from North Georgia. Thank you so much for calling in and watching the show. It's actually a record-breaking day, and it doesn't surprise me that it's Lieutenant Colonel Karen Kwiatkowski that is driving this ship today as we hit 100 live watchers for our first time ever. It doesn't surprise me whatsoever. And thank you so much, Katie, for being a part of it.
Nothing wrong with the Polish people. I grew up outside of Cleveland and had Bohemians. They would never say Polish. They would say they were Bohunks. And there was a lot of cultural enclave, if you for want of a better term, on Cleveland. So it was
great. Another immigrant success story for America. The Poles have made just like the Irish and every other large group that's come in. Fantastic,
Every time that I would do something clumsy or stupid, my Italian family, my mother's side, all Italian. My dad was half Polish, half Italian, so which made me like 30% Polish when I did my DNA test. And I was stupid enough to give my DNA over to Ancestry.com.
Yeah.
I apologize, but they would say all the time, "You are a Polak." And they would say to me all the time, I'm like, "Damn, why you got to do that to me?" and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
Well,
they
there was so
busted
much
my
of my
chops.
upbringing. There was so much about my individual upbringing that affected my attitudes. I had older sisters who were obviously mixed. And to see people being so horrible to them as a 5 or 6 year old for no other reason than that they look different. I could have easily grown up in the white community in which I was raised and been a very racist person. I had no exposure to black people, Hispanics, anything like that, but I had 2 brown sisters. And to me, they were just sisters. And so when I saw people being horrible to them for no apparent reason, it really created in me the concept of caring about people as who they are and not as how they look. So, again, a lot of things are, situational. But gosh, if we could get kids out in the world for reasons other than fighting, for culture, for study, we could be just better people in general and better global citizens. The only way they get to travel for a lot of kids who aren't born into wealth is to join the service. And that's sad. That's really sad.
Yeah.
It's true.
Okay, well, I'll
Thank
go
you for
and
calling in. We love it when women call in the show too, as well. We push for it. We like it. Thank you so much, Katie, for being a part of. We're over 100 watchers right now too, so as well. So it's kind of awesome that
baby.
it's you calling in with Colonel Karen while we did it again for the second time today. I appreciate you, Katie.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
I'd like to add that Wednesdays are probably my favorite day of the show. Sure.
Brown nose. Nah.
Yeah.
It's always interesting conversations with the
during
Colonel.
COVID. I made a target list of people I wanted to talk to, and at the top of the list was Peter McCullough and Dr. Zelenko. Now, Zelenko I never got on. He passed away, but Peter McCullough immediately responded, and I was very fortunate to do that. I made a list of people that were on The Judge and other shows that I wanted to have on, and at the top of the list was Lawrence Wilkerson and Karen Kwiatkowski. And I was blessed that, we did the show together on RT, and we bonded ever since. And you've been on the show, Colonel Karen. For me, like I said, I am just beyond grateful and thankful that you join us on this show, because I do believe you bring this type of human perspective, right? I think a lot of times when military people they speak so analytical. I mean, I love Scott Ritter, and when he speaks, and I don't agree with everything, it's so analytical to the point, this and that and stuff like that. But when you speak and what you talk about and you're writing, I think you make us, and I hate to quote Bernie Sanders, you make us more human than, we sometimes forget. We can be that way.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Thanks for the compliment. I mean, I hope that, I'm glad you've got this program, because it really is the most fun, because I'm on other podcasts sometimes, regularly. And a lot of times it is talking about military stuff. And I do go off topic, of course, but here I feel like I can really it is like sitting around a table, and we're just sharing ideas and talking about things that we're concerned about. So it's
These are important conversations. These are important conversations. And that's the whole thing, was to get you in this environment where it's a 2-hour show and just let you go, let you speak, let you do your thing. So I just love to sit back. And like I said, I've been blessed my whole life being around strong women. In the chat, Gabrielle Freedom, the producer of the show, one of the producers of the show, I'm so thankful. I mean, she's done so much for me. Thank you, Gabrielle. She got me in the Mines Festival, and I've been blessed for the women that are around me. And I'm not just saying that because, I was on the left, and it was always about, believe women, this and that. It was all these like cliches and stuff like that. But my experience in my lifetime, and, because I am a strong mama's boy, I'm close with my mom. I've been able to open up my ears and listen and form a great bond with some great, strong women around me. So thank you for doing so. And guys, we have about 13 minutes left of the show. So we might, and Joan got in late, but she's here. We do have a chance if you want to call on in. there was something I did want to talk about, but I'm looking at my notes and I don't know where it's
Oh,
at.
I have something I want to bring up.
But please, go ahead. Thank God, because I
it's
lost my
exciting.
train of thought. So you drive the bus.
Well, no, you mentioned Larry Wilkerson, and he's part of the Eisenhower Media Network. He's with them. I'm with them. There's a bunch of other, a lot of the Judge Knapp guests are with the Eisenhower Media Network. Matt Ho is there. There's all kinds of them.
Yeah.
Anyway, General Leitch is the current executive director of the Eisenhower Media Network. It's not a very big organization, but he wrote a fantastic piece that he ran as an ad last Monday. No, 13th, not this past Monday, the last week, a week ago Monday. And it ran in the USA Today as an advertisement. So the Eisenhower Media Network published this, but it talks about it sets off, it's kind of like the 250th anniversary because it centers on both Eisenhower, but also not just Eisenhower's Cross of Iron speech, which is really important about how every dime spent on military bombs destruction is a dime we don't have to help our people build our roads, strengthen our education, whatever it is. So that's a message I think a lot of people agree with. That's, of course, Eisenhower from over 50 years ago. Then he goes back and quotes Thomas Paine. And Thomas Paine was the rebel rouser of the founders. And he was also broke. I mean, he was not a landowner. He was not your typical, I'm going to be the king. We're going to set this constitution up so we can keep running things like we want to, except we're in charge now. Paine was very different than that. And he advocated, he was a populist, and he believed in the power of the people very strongly. And he was very eloquent about it, as we all know. Give me liberty or give me death. But it wasn't just that. He had so many things that he said. And so there's some quotes from Thomas Paine in this. If you can find the article, USA Today may be able to find it on their website. I'm not sure, but it's out and about. You can find it at the Eisenhower Media Network website. and we're talking about it. We're trying to talk about it more because the topic was, we cannot be paying $2 trillion a year for the military. Our military is inappropriately funded, inappropriately designed, and inappropriately used to protect the American people. This is kind of the sum message of this thing. And what General Leitch is hoping to do with this message, and what all of us hope to do, and I think most Americans would probably agree with it, they think about it, is to have a military budget that's not just manageable, which means smaller than it is, far smaller than it is. Have a military that can pass an audit, which it can't right now, and it never will in the way that it's formed currently. But to have a military that actually helps the American nation, protects it to the extent that we need protection. We all, sovereign nations need a military. Okay, fine. Let's have one that protects our sovereignty. Let's have one that protects the interest of our people. And we know that the interests of the American people right now are not in the war with Iran. There it is. Yeah. America's dilemma at 250, a budget of the Pentagon by the Congress and for the war profiteers. And sounds a lot like Smedley Butler also back in the 1930s. So this message has been percolating. This thinking is percolating around the United States for hundreds of years. It is a popular message. It is a populist message. It crosses boundaries of parties. And so we do have the power of the people. Thomas Paine was talking to Americans who felt totally powerless to throw off the yoke of British colonialism. People who had known nothing other than that, people that did not have resources beyond what they were able to scrape out of the ground as new immigrants to this country. And he spoke to them about their power. And I think in some ways it's a little bit about what Katie was talking about. And we're talking about women's roles and how women can protect themselves. Well, a big part of it is to recognize our own power, not our power over other people, but our power as women, as individuals, to control our destinies, whether it looks like we can, whether people tell us we can control our destinies or not. And I recall being in meetings where they'd say, hey, Karen, can you bring us the coffee, the tea? Yeah, there's that default thing that says, but we have power as women. We have power as Americans. We have power as individuals to assert our strength and our authority over our future. And right now, Congress is not doing that. The very Congress that we have is joining our military at the hip with a racist, ethno-fascist military. that feels brown people don't have the same rights as European people, because most of the Zionists are European. If they did the ancestry DNA, they would that would be proven. It's well known. And actually, did you know that in Israel, it's illegal to contribute to do an ancestry? Ancestry cannot advertise.
Oh yeah. But they own the company. The Zionists own the company, but you can't. You're not allowed.
They
They
don't
don't
want
want you to do that because they
No.
don't want.
Because then it might
Palestinians want to go. Hey, look at this. This paper
Wait a
says
minute,
that I'm here, and you're
you're
from
not actually-
Poland.
that's
Malachowski.
you're not actually from here. Oh, by the way, that changes things. But we have great power as people. We have the communities have power. The real important power that comes from human beings is from themselves, their families, their communities. It comes from decentralized coming together. It doesn't come from obeying an authority figure. It doesn't come from saying, well, there's nothing we can do about that Congress. We tried to vote every 2 years. We thought we got somebody, but they don't do anything and they don't listen to us, and they're doing things that are counter to the interests of ourselves or our country. I think certainly we can focus on Pentagon waste and, this idea of $1 trillion military. I mean, we spend more in our military. They can't win a war than the top 9 countries below us combined. Not 9 times more than the next guy, 9 times more than the next 8 or 9 guys, 8 or 9 countries combined. We spend more than they do, and yet we still can't win wars. So something's happening. Well, what's happening is our military industrial complex is getting rich. Our congressmen and senators are benefiting from their alliance with the military industrial complex. They're benefiting from this resource extraction, this resource flow. It has to change. And people say, well, we'll vote our way out of it. Well, I'm not sure. Sure. So we do need to think about Thomas Paine is kind of an inspiration. And that's what I really liked about this article that's out there that Pasta had up. It is important for us
I threw a link for it in chat.
Yes. Oh, super. I appreciate that. I appreciate that, because I think it's put together in a way that people can kind of say, you know what? Yeah, that's right. That is absolutely right. Let's go do something. And, we need that. We need that for anything. Anytime we see things that are wrong, we have to say, you know what? It's time. Let's go do something about that.
Yeah. Colonel Karen Kwiatkowski, thank you so much for joining the show today on Wednesdays. It's awesome. I hope that we're going to vote ourselves out of this. That was the last attempt with this Donald Trump situation. I mean, like I say all the time.
Nah, dude, the Democrats are going to bring that dead horse forever.
But listen, a lot of leftists or people from that side or who share the same ideological thought of people from the left that might be like more pro-immigrant, anti-imperialist, maybe they'll step up and say something this time, because we did have Barack Obama. And I think it's important. I mean, there's a video out there now with Adam Smith going on with, I forgot her name, Crystal Ball. And it just shows you and exposes who the Democrats are themselves. And you don't have to look very far to see Gavin Newsom's history. We can even tie it to the Pritzkers and the Epstein class. So let's hope that we can push back against that.
My governor.
They are going to attempt to do that. We have to be ready for that. And I think that is the kabuki theater, the staged act in front of us, is that they make the ones in power so bad that you're almost begging for a Donald Trump, or you were begging for an Obama. And they're going to do the same thing next time, where people will be begging for a Gavin Newsom. But we have to push back against that rhetoric. And we do that by bringing on co-hosts like Lieutenant Colonel Karen Kwiatkowski. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful Wednesday, and I will see you next week, Colonel.
Absolutely. Thank you. And we'll see you next Wednesday.
Definitely. Say hi to the ducks for me. I hear them.
Yes, I will.
I hear them quack.
Yes.
Guys, I just want to go over a couple comments real quickly. The USSR, under the reactionary cruise ship, supported Israel for a short time. They were hoping it would go socialist, but because of the kibbutzism, I think there was a lot to do too, as well, with the guilty kind of like feelings that the Russians had for maybe some of the pogroms that took place and running off, Jewish people at one point. I don't think that was. I think it was overplayed. Definitely, and Israel definitely overplays that right now to justify their actions, and certainly everything we've been taught in school kind of justifies their actions, that they were the oppressed, they were the killed ones. So I definitely think there's something to that. Be polite, everyone. Pasta Jardula has been exposing the Epstein class for over a decade now. He deserves respect and support. Thank you so much, Orion Spectrum. And we did. It was so crazy when people this year, about 6 months ago, were going, we now know for sure that Epstein worked with the Mossad. We have a video 7 years ago that said Jeffrey Epstein and the Mossad connections. It's just ridiculous that nowadays we're saying that's okay. Draft. Will the draft, Anthony Imperio, will the draft fix things? I don't know. I think that rich people will get lawyers and they will find a way to not be enlisted and get out of it. So I still think the poor will go fight the rich man's war. And this one, we bonded with more conservative people during COVID, but I've lost most of them because they are in the Trump cult. You listen, RFK, he ran the Children's Health Defense Network. Why don't you care about children in Gaza? It is something serious, whatnot. Rescue the Republic. You saw a lot of Maha people that were just ignoring the fact that this was going to be the most Zionist administration of all times. So you're absolutely right. And I do think there's something there that, obviously you don't want to put that on every single conservative voter or every Maha person because, we are, in fact, stuck in this kind of cult mentality. But it is something interesting to see that we have to crack. We have to get rid of this football mentality, this team sports mentality in the United States, or we are never going to get out of the problems that we face. So I don't know if Sleepy has worked on the music, but I'm going to start the final monologue.
I'm gonna try it with.
We are going to try. You let me know when it's time to go, Maestro.
Say something.
Something.
Hey, I can hear you.
All right. Look, as we wrap up today's show, let's take a moment to reflect on the importance of diversity of thought and the peace we can cultivate with our neighbors. In a world that often feels divided, it's our differences that can actually bring us together. Every unique perspective, every story shared enriches our collective experience and fosters understanding. Remember, it's okay to disagree. It's how we handle those disagreements that truly matter. Let's embrace dialogue over debate, compassion over conflict. When we listen to one another, we open the door to meaningful relationships. By engaging with our diverse communities, we can find common ground and build bridges that promote peace. So I encourage you to reach out to someone with a different viewpoint. Share a meal, have a conversation, or simply listen. Let's create a ripple effect of kindness and understanding in our neighborhoods and beyond. Hey, thanks for joining today's show and tuning in today. Remember, together, we can celebrate our diversity and pave the way for a more brighter, more peaceful future. So until next time, keep the dialogue flowing and that peace growing. For Craig Pasta Jardula, Karen Kwiatkowski, Sleepy Josh, I want to thank all the producers that are in the chat. Fred Edwards, of course, Gabrielle Freedom. Thank you so much, everybody, for getting on up. Katie, thank you for calling in from North Georgia. Miguel Santiago from South Florida. We love you all. I'll see you guys tomorrow. And remember, you got to share that love, and peace be with us.